Hello, students, and welcome back to the class. Good evening. Yes, let's get started. Hello, let's get started. So, there's one more concept that I want to spend some time on, which is uh, in MongoDB. You can So I have been talking about this for last 3-4 lectures about schema-lessness of MongoDB. Schema-lessness of MongoDB. You don't need a schema. But in reality, what happens generally is people prefer to have a schema. So MongoDB natively does not provide you with a support for a given schema. MongoDB natively don't provide you with the support for a schema. But in reality, people prefer to have a schema. They like to write consistently into their database. And for that, there is something called as schema validation. Schema validation. This concept is, you'll come across this anytime you work with the MongoDB, you are going to come across schema validation. Okay? And the concept is very simple. You can define what kind of data you will have in your data, what kind of data you will allow to be saved in a given collection, and that is called as validation. Okay, so I'll create I'll show it to you on Compass instead of talking about it, because I think showing and telling is better than showing is better than telling. So validation, I'm going to discuss that validation in few minutes. Just don't worry about it. Suppose I come to test and I open my Mongoose. In Mongoose, I define a new schema, a new collection. I call db dot, let me increase the font size, db dot collection, create collection. And in this, I define a collection called as contacts. And it's a very simple validation. Comma validator colon. We're going to discuss the rules for validator in just few minutes. Let me do shift enter. $or and contacts can be either one of these three. Either it will be phone because of type string. I'll explain what is happening here in just a second. Okay, now what is, I don't like this. Let me define a simple function. db dot create collection, and let's call this as name. This is I'll just call it names, and this is a simple validator which says that a field called as name should be a string. So I'll just write dollar type is string. I enter this. Now if I do something like this, db dot names dot create doc. What is the function? Write insert one. Okay. In insert one, if I do something like name as Anshul, this will run very well. But if I do the same command and instead of Anshul I write name as 1 or maybe 42, this will say document failed validation. Document was not satisfying the validation. If you want to check what validation it failed, validation is not clear to Vivek. Vivek, do you see what is the difference between these two commands that I have written here? This insert name as Anshul and insert name is 42. Yes. In one, I am sending a string, and in another, I am sending 42 as the number. And I have said that name should only be string. It should not be anything other than a string. So now, I cannot save anything other than a string in this name's data. Okay. No double quotes for none name. Okay. But if I just go again and instead of 42, I write 42 as a string, it will run through. So there are two names right now. If I do false, you get the idea. If I do false, it will fail because it's not a string. As long as it is a string, it will work. If it is not a string, it will not work. Got it. So this is called as validation. Validation schema. Okay. I'll give you some more examples of validation. It works only like C++. Is there a validator in C++ also? I mean, it's similar to the data type C++. What is schema? A schema is basically this collection of these validations. Yes, data types of C++. That is. So this whole collection of this here, this quantity here is known as a schema. From this curly braces to this curly braces. This is known as a schema of names data set. Names collection. Okay. Just give me 1 minute. Let me connect to this screen. Yeah, it is a schema of our name. That is true, Aradhya. It's the structure. You can think of a schema as the structure. A schema comes from the word scheme. You know, there's a word called as a scheme, which says how things should be in the world. So similarly, schema is how things should be in a collection. I'll give you another schema type. I'll write it in VS Code because that is better. That's a better place to write the code. Okay. And then I'll show it to you how it works. So I'll just I'll just come here and just click on this. And I'll give you some examples of schemas using VS Code. So the first thing I'll do is I'll create a new file, new folder, CRM app, new folder. I'll just call it as data modeling in MongoDB. In this, I define a new file. This file is called as schema validation. I can also call it as JS, but I'll just call it as MD. That's okay. Okay, so let me define a schema. A JSON schema will look something like this. Let me close this. Example of a JSON schema looks something like this. Dollar JSON and schema. JSON type is object. You have to write this. We're going to save an object in JSON. It can also be an array if you want, but I'm just using an object. And required, these fields are required. So if these fields are not there, this you cannot insert. Okay. Name, email, and age. These three fields are required. And then there are properties about these fields. Let's talk about properties of these fields. First, you have a name. Name will have JSON type. Let me see if I can run this. Let me just write name and don't worry about the rest of it. Schema shows the requirements. Yeah, schema shows the design of your data. Schema, you can think of schema as the design of the data. Okay. You have a string, and there are different min length is there. For example, min length is there. So it says that the minimum length is 2. The name should be at least 2 alphabets, and max length is 50. It should not be more than 50 words, 50 letters. Those are the properties. I don't want to write other properties for the timing, but I'll just write this. Now I'll copy this, and I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to share the whole screen actually. That is better because I don't want to share one again and again. So I'll just share the whole screen, and I'll keep on switching between different tabs. This you can see. Now I'll open this tab. Now I'm going to create another schema. I'll first drop the previous schema, previous collection. So I'll just do db.names.drop. No, I'll just do drop. If I do this, it is returned to. If I do show collections, user name is not there. Okay. Now I do db.create collection. Inside this, I'm going to say The collection is called as users. And then I'm going to do a validator, colon, and here I'll paste the schema that I have written. Okay. Now this is, I'm going to press enter. What is the problem? Maybe there is a problem of colon. JSON schema, validator. Why do we need a schema? Because we don't want random data in our, we don't want random data in, we don't want random data in our database. Therefore, we need a schema. Seems to be correct. Comma missing, required field. Required field. Oh, okay. Sure. I'll again write it. No, I'll just click here. Click up. And up. In this, I just go into required field and click a comma and enter. What is the problem? Name, properties, name, schema, JSON, schema, validator, properties, name, oh, this is string is wrong. I'll just again put this. Sorry, string should be double quotes. Oh, yeah, double quotes. Again, made a mistake here. Yeah, this should be double quotes. I click enter and it says okay. Now this is another way of writing the same thing. Now I'll go back to my schema validator, update those two changes. First, there should be a comma here. Second, there should be a curly braces. This is called as here is the schema. Schema. What it does, it creates a schema for name. So name should be a string between the length of 2 and 50 for our users collection. I'll show you how to write this. To create the users collection, create the users collection, write the following command. The following command should be returned: db.create collection, and in this you can assign users, comma, this one. Inside this is a validator, and inside this you can write whatever is written inside this. You can copy paste this part, and you can come here and paste it. Just give me 1 second. Let me copy this. This should go one step forward, and this should go one step back. Like, sir, we did write JSON type instead of just type on line number 10. Yeah, that is because JSON, when you write it in JSON schema, it's better to write it like this. This is just syntax. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, Aradhya. Schema is basically used for validation processes. Yes, that is true. Ekta, why did we write? Okay, sorry, Ekta has asked this question. Aradhya is like this. You can ask password to contain minimum digits. Yes, that is very good, Aradhya. You can. That's a good assignment for you. Try to write a password validator, Aradhya. Okay, try to write a password validator that will acquainted with you with bunch of ways of doing properties. Okay. And that means by specifying the schema, data cannot be inserted outside the value inserted in minimum and maximum length. That is true. Likhit, that is very true. requires properties are inbuilt keywords. Yeah, these are inbuilt keywords of JSON schema. JSON schema has a schema of itself. This property here has a schema of itself. It should have a basin type. It should have it should have bunch of required fields, and it should have properties about other fields. For example, name is there, but there can also be another property. Say, let's have another property. Say email, and then there's a property called email, and then email can be interesting. Email can be BSON type of string. And can you tell me how will you implement a email checker? It should or it may or may not have all these. Required should be present. It should have a name. Yeah. Type should not be email. There is no email type as such in BSON. Yes. No, it requires. It is required also. Email is not required. If email is not written here, email is not required. You can do away with email. You can just insert one name. But if you are inserting an email, it should be a string, and there should be another complex type. There should be a type testing for email. Can somebody tell me how you will do that? Email is required. It contains an at the rate. That is true. Asking for at the rate, it must have at the rate. That is okay, but can you think of a thing that can do the solution very easily? I mean, it can solve the problem for you. This is basically a kind of problem that, yes, regex, that's true, but now what you are looking for is a pattern. There's a pattern keyword that you can use, and this pattern keyword will use a regex inside it. So first thing that you're looking for is either a small case alphabet or a large case alphabet, or 0 to 9, either one of these, or an underscore, or it can also be a dot, it can be a plus, or it can be a minus. All of these are possible, and they will happen a plus number of times. So they will happen few number of times. These characters can come for a bunch of times. Once they are over, there should be an at the rate. After at the rate, there should be a domain name, which is A to Z, 0 to 9, minus, and then there can also be plus option. That can happen for some time. And then there will be a stop. There will be a period. So there are three components. There is one username, then there is at the rate, then there is website name, and then there is .com or something. So we can just write it as A to Z, some subdomain, A to Z, 0 to 9, dash dot, and then there will be a plus, and then there will be a dollar, which says this is the end of the document. That pattern should start here and end here. There should not be any leading spaces or any other character in this email. This is regex. Regular expression, current. Regular expressions are called as regex. How should we write in regex? What's the format? So regex is itself a different language that you can learn. But basically the idea is there are different characters which have different meaning. For example, this character here, you see this character means that whatever comes after this should be the start of whatever comes after this character should be the start of the string. Okay. No need to before at the rate. At the rate we don't have written any before. Yeah, I have not written. I have not written backspace before at the rate. I have only written backspace before this dot here. Before at the rate dot because before. So, Likhit is asking what? Likhit, what is it? Yeah, there's no need for at the rate before at the rate. At the rate is not a special character, whereas dot is a special character. Dot means something should occur only once, or at least it should occur 0 times or 1 time. So we have dot more than once. So these operators are there. You can learn about regex. Maybe I can show you how to learn about regex. Regex in JS. Okay. So there's a regex reference. You can read about it. It is very useful. So look, where there's a close bracket ABC, that means find any character between the brackets. Any character of ABC is possible. You can write it as like this. Okay, look, okay, I mean, just let me show you regex. Regex compiler. Test, build, and debug regex. You can just go to this. Okay, regular expression. So if I just write a string, say Anshul, it is a regular expression that can take Anshul as a string. This is a correct string. But if I write Anshul, it will not take. Okay. This is incorrect. This is correct. Okay. If I say Anshul, but at the end I can have either Y or Z. Okay. So now this is another regular expression that I have created. Now both of them are not correct strings. But if I write Anshul capital Y, this is a correct string. And if I write Anshul capital Z, this is also a correct string. But if I write Anshul, say Y, it is not a correct string. You see what I'm doing here? Okay, I'll zoom it. Just give me 1 second. Yes. So you can just go to regex 101 and try out different types of regex. Why am I not able to take it out? Move tab to new window. Okay, I'll just click on this and I'll just minimize this. Open the chart. Why need Y and Z? Y and Z, I'll tell you why we need it. Just give me 1 second. So whatever regex you write here will come, can be tested in the next lines. That's the funda behind this regex compiler. Come on. This is very slow. Look at the movie that I have created. Just give it a few seconds. Yeah, now it is good. Now I'll open it to this point. Okay. I'll increase the font size. So I just go here and do Control++. Yeah, now it is good. Look what is happening. Let me clear out everything. Ping 990. Okay. So suppose I'm looking for numbers. Then I can do 0 to 9. And then I can do plus. That means I need at least one or more numbers. So 0 is a valid number. This is a valid string. But if I do 098 ABC, this is not a valid string. It should be all numbers. Okay. Now I can do much better than that. I can also have numbers and alphabets. So I can do A to Z and 0 and 9. And I can also have A to Z capital and 0 to 9. And I can say that my string starts with these characters. Okay. But it should also have an at the end. So now all of them are not agreeing. But if I now write something like Anshul Y at the rate, if you want to include dash, you can just do dash also. You can just write dash inside this. Now you can include dash also. We can have a complicated and detailed validator as we can have as that is. Is it lagging for everyone or is it just Vivek? You can have much complicated, but it will not be as complicated as a programming language. It will not be totally complicated. Just give me 1 second. Let me check my internet it should be working fine. Yeah, it's just like nested JSON. Yes. It cannot have loops. Okay, you can have some loops, but it becomes a little difficult. You can have a very complicated validator, but you cannot have an infinitely complicated validator. It is not as expressive as a programming language. Okay, so you can have you can have nested JSON. You can have this. That is true. That is true. You know, you want it just like nested JSON. Yes. Yes, that is true. You can make it grow as large as you want. So I hope you understand regular expression. I don't have time to go into everything about regular expressions, but basically the idea is you can have different characters to match different kinds of strings, and that is all there is to regular expressions. Okay, so going back to this is how I can match a. This is how I can match a email address. Now I'm going to copy this and paste it in my validator to show you that it indeed works. So I'll just select it and I'll just paste this. And now, unless I write a email address, let me write Anshul Yadav. This is not my exact email address at gmail.com. And then it works. As long as you are writing a email address, it will work. But if you don't write an email address, it will not work. Okay. This is how you can test for email addresses. Going back to the JSON compiler, you can write this pattern. And now what does this schema means? This schema means your users should have a name and can have this. The schema means that the user should have a name, must have a name, which is a string and of the length between 2 and 50. Also, there can be an email address in the JSON. There can be an email address in the JSON which should agree with the regex. Okay, so those are a couple of things that you regex101.com is very helpful website. You can always visit it. And if you ever get worried about if you are not able to write a regex, you can just write it on. You know what I'm talking about. You can just go to ChatGPT and say I want a regex for email addresses, and it will give you a regex for email addresses. You don't have to worry about writing it yourself. You can write a complicated logic, and that logic can also be taken care of in regex. So I'll just that is true. Can you please write the regex? That is true. I've been shouting out regex. I've been shouting out ChatGPT for such a long time. Can you please write the regex in JS, Java script format? for an email validator. If I do this, it will write the regex for me. And here's the regular activity checkers. A to Z, 0 to 9. All of these should not be there. All of them can be there. It should be between 0 to, all of these are there, any number of them. And then there should be at the rate. And then there should be a complicated logic. Okay. So, yes. And there should be a dot. And there should be a bunch of other. This should reoccur several times. So you see what is happening. This is the username. Before this, everything is the username. This part is the, I'm not able to select parts in this. Before what's question mark? Question mark means, it means there should be at least one of it. One or more is what question mark is. Okay. So this is a complicated logic for regex for email. What is regex just right now? This is regex is regular expressions that give you a way to validate strings. And I have written, this is the regex for email validator. Okay. I was talking to students about how you can validate the strings that you are writing. For example, if you have an email address that you need a validation for, you can write a regex in patterns field and it will agree to that regex. Unless you write an email address, you will not be able to insert something here. Okay, that was the logic I was talking about, Joseph. And then I went into a tangent when I was talking about regex101.com, which is a website where you can check your regex. And then I said, you don't always have to write your regex. You can just you can directly get the regex by ChatGPT. Line 32 pattern. Yeah, that is the regex for email addresses. Yeah, this is a pattern for email addresses. First, you can have a username, which is here. This part is username. There can be a bunch of alphabets or numbers, and the string should start with them. Then there should be an @ Then there should be a subdomain. Where names and emails are fields for the documents that you are going to save. They are not collections. Collection is only users. Users is the collection. Name and email are fields inside the documents for user collection. Files. I don't like this when it says it. I want prettier to be off. Can you just turn? I don't want to make my height prettier. Status bar. No, I want to click on prettier. Here. How can I turn off my prettier? Control P. Disable it. No. No. Search. No, I can. I think I know how to do it. I can just go to manage. I can click on extensions. Inside extensions, there should be prettier that I have installed. Inside prettier, I should be able to change. I can disable this. That is good. I just come here and save this guy. No, this is not how. Prettier is not causing the. Okay, reload. Okay, I save this one more time. No, it is working fine. So we are good. I actually, what I have done is I have made it auto pretty. So what I have done is every time I click on prettier, every time I save it, my documents get prettied automatically. But I don't like that happening with the MD file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to prettier. I'm going to go to prettier, and there should be a service called this extension settings. And inside this, there should be workspaces, no settings found. No, I just go to this, enable this, and now there should be a way of selecting which language you are prettying. So I this document, add item, I'm not sure. There should be a way, but I'm not sure how it is going to work. I'll work it out on my own in my own free time. But yeah, again the prettier has started. Sorry, let's control as this, reload it, and I'll save it like a good person. Okay, so that's how you can do validation. You can do a bunch of validations. I can discuss more validations, but the key idea to note is you cannot have. There are a couple of things that you can note about it. How to add documents validation for existing collection? That is true. So what you can do is there are some commands you can use called as call mod, collection modification, COLMOD. If you use that command, you can modify a collection's validation. Okay. That one how to use. Yeah, I'll show it to you. Create a validator for existing documents. Okay, so there is a command. There is a command called collection modification, call mod, which can be used to update the validator for an existing collection. Okay, I'll show you how to use this command. Basically, what you do is I'll just go back to the here. Here I'm going to do db dot call mod. Is there a call mod command? Call mod. It's not. Run command. Run command is there. Inside run command, I can say I want to update. I want to run call mod on users, and inside this user, I can send the new validator which I'm looking for. That's it. This time I decide that I'm not going to validate anything other than that my name should be a string. Dollar type string. My name should be nothing but a string. If I do this, this should be inside quotes, of course. If I do this, my validator will change. And now, inside my user collection, db.users.name insert one. Inside my user collection, I can insert a single word, a single letter name. So I can do name, name is A, and it will get inserted. If I go back to the validator that I have written previously, so what I'll do is I'll do db.run command. How it is different from previous validator, I can show it to you. In the previous validator, my name should at least have 2 letters. It should not be less than 1 letter. The length of name string should not be less than 2. Okay? I'll show it to you. I'll just run the call mod command again. On user table, and this time validator is, and I'm going to paste the validator that I have written previously, which is this validator. This JSON schema thing, if I copy it, we can use call mode versus without call mode difference. How is it different? No, so with call mode you can use a different validator. So for an existing table you can use a different validator. If I do this, now if I insert the same, if I try to insert this, it will say document failed validator. Okay. So what I'm talking here about is a widget that you have an existing collection and then you want to update your validator. In that case, what you need to do is you need to pass a new validator to call mod function. Now, if I insert a document with AA, if it's unshul, it will run perfectly fine. I can insert unshul. I can also insert unshul, comma, email. Maybe email I can insert as unshul at gmail.com. This will work fine. But if this comes instead of this at the rate, if I remove and I say unshul g, this will not get inserted because this is not an email address. You see how I can update the schema that is present before. And there are a bunch of validation levels that you can set. Okay. While you are validating a schema, there are a bunch of validation levels. One is where you can have a moderate validator, which means all the documents that were previously there will not be modified. Only the new documents will be checked against the validator. Yeah, validation level. I'll talk about validation level. Why unshulji failed? Because email is not in the format that I'm looking for. Email is bad. Okay. Therefore unshulji failed. You see how I can change the I can modify the validator. I just give you the options for validation here. Yes, exactly, Nilanjan. That's true. That is exactly why you need validation. I'll show you how this validation. Can you paste it? Can you paste it, chat? In ChatGPT, do you want me to paste it in? If new validation on the previous talks does not approve them, what would happen to those documents? Yeah, this is a good question, and this is where I want to come to, Vishal. Let me open the ChatGPT, and I'll show you validation levels. Validation levels. Yeah, a purpose of call mod is to modify the collection. You can change the properties of the collections after defining it. That's what call mod is. And when I'm changing the property for a single, for the validation, I'm using call mod because I want to change the validation level. Okay. Does that make sense? Call mod, collection modification. Aradhya? Like changing it. Yes, that's true. Like when you are changing the schema, you use call mod. Okay. So now there is something called as validator and there is something called as validation level. Now let's look at validation levels options. This is how you should read the documentation. If it is off, no validation for insert or update. If it is strict, default apply validation rules to all inserts and all updates. This is going to apply it for all the inserts and all the updates, whether they happen before or later. In which case, what it means is you will get an error if you try to change the validation with a strict schema if it does not agree with the previously added documents. Moderate is usually the case which you use. Apply validation rules to inserts and to updates on existing valid documents. Do not apply rules to updates on existing invalid documents. That means whatever is present, if it is not correct, I don't worry about it. That is what moderate means. I let it be. Okay, Vishal? You have three options. Either you can discard all the documents that have come before, which are not agreeing with your schema, and unless you have discarded all of them, the validation will not go through. Second is you can do a moderate validation, in which case all the existing documents are okay, but new documents you are going to be strict with them. Can you tell me one place where this happens in real life? Not just code, but where does this kind of validation happens in, say, politics or real life? Have you ever seen how laws update? If there is a new law and you have broken that law before it was being implemented, that's okay. You are not charged with that crime. But if you break the law after it has been implemented, then you are charged with the punishment. So that same thing is happening here also. If a document has come before you have updated the validator, that's fine with moderate validation level. And if it came before it, that's fine. But if it comes after, then you will charge that. You will not let it insert. Using plastic bags. Yes, like using plastic bags. It doesn't matter how many days you have been using plastic bags. As soon as the government says you cannot use the plastic bag, that means you cannot use any further. Okay. Look at this validation action. There are different types of validation actions that you can apply. Typically, there are two types of them. One is error and the other is warn. Either you can stop execution or you don't allow any bad document to be inserted, or you can have a simple warning every time there is a validation error. So you can allow bad implementation, but you will get notified about it. Both of those are options on validation. What should MongoDB do when there is a validation error? Should it throw an error and stop execution on that request, or should it just warn you about it and let the request pass, let the document get saved? And action applied on top of level we choose. Yes, exactly. Action gets applied on top of the level. All the people who are breaking the law, should you give a warning to them, or should you put them in the jail and not let them roam around? That's what validation action is about. First is who should be punished, and second is what should be the punishment. Should it be a warning or should it be a capital punishment? Okay, that's the difference. So that's how you can do validation schema. There are some ways of bypassing this also, but I don't want to discuss that. That's just so. There are two terms in general awareness. There are two terms that people usually talk about. One is called as general knowledge, and another. So there are two terms that you can remember. One is called as general knowledge. This is good. And there is also Jabra knowledge. This is any knowledge which is not useful. Okay, so in computer science, this will happen a lot. You will have a lot of general knowledge and a lot of Jabra knowledge. You don't need it, but you are just remembering it. And it will not serve any utility. For example, somebody can ask you a question like, what was the full name of Mahatma Gandhi? Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. That's general knowledge. But if somebody asks you, how many days in a year does Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi eat a prodigy? Or how many times in a year does he eat khichdi? Now that's general knowledge. Nobody needs that information. Yeah. So similarly, there is a lot of general knowledge that you can come across in coding, and it's okay to avoid it. I want to spend some time talking about types of relationships in I can talk about relationships in what type of questions to expect from MongoDB in interviews. You can be asked questions about MongoDB's. That's a difficult thing to answer. You will be asked a question, so there can be different kinds of questions. One question is very pinpointed about specific properties of MongoDB. Yeah, you can have particular questions like what kind of database it is, how does it store data, what do you understand by NoSQL databases, what do you understand by document-based databases. All those kind of basic questions can come. Then it can come like how does atomicity happens in MongoDB. All those kind of pointed questions can come about MongoDB. Or then there can another case where people can ask you to actually design a data set in an interview. Like they can ask you to design a database for a particular problem, and they can ask you what kind of a schema are you going to use in this database. So that question is a different kind of. Those are the two types of questions: pinpointed and case study based. Okay, Vijay. And this is typically the way questions are asked in most of the non-DSA domain. Most of the non-DSA domain, they'll ask you either very pinpointed question or they will put a cases where you need to solve it. I want to spend some time talking about relationships. Relationships in MongoDB or relationships in databases. There are three types of them. One is one-to-one. This usually comes in case of reference type. It can also come in case of, I'll just discuss one-to-one, in which, for example, every person has one contact detail. Are joins applied on reference types? That is true. You need to apply joins if you need to access more than one collection. How to prepare for interviews? The best way to prepare for DynamoDB interview is to actually use DynamoDB on a bunch of projects. So all these topics that you are discussing, the best way to prepare for them is to just apply them. Don't try to remember things, but try to just apply them on different projects. Ideally, Deepak, you should not be ever thinking about interviews. Ideally, interviews should only be about salary negotiations, nothing else. Interview for you be actually equal to salary negotiation. Rest everything is just bullshit. Okay? That should be the level of preparation. You should have created so many apps, so many websites that anything you ask me, I will be able to answer it. You will be thinking what is the minimum, what is the price I can hire this person at. And that should be the way you should approach interviews. You should not just spend 6 months preparing for interviews. That's a bad way to do it. The good way to do is just start working somewhere. Okay. Just start getting some projects. I always talk about freelancing. Just go outside, make some projects, build something. If somebody is not buying it, you just put it online. Just make something and it will. There is something called as space, backspace S. You can do backspace S. This will accept a space in MongoDB. And then you can do a star in front of it. So as many spaces you want, you can apply Nilanjan. Backspace S, you can use there. Okay. If you don't have experience, how do you negotiate? The best way is to just get experience from somewhere and work there very well. Or just get some, where to apply it before. Before at the rate. There should not be any space in email addresses. I don't understand. Why do you want space in an email address? Email address don't allow spaces. Name. Name does not contain at the rate. Name will be something like this. A to Z, A to Z, 0 to 9, and then you will have maybe space. Or 0 to 9 is also not needed. You will just have A to Z, A to Z. You need a space between, so you can do A to Z, then backspace S, and then A to Z, A to Z. This will work. And there should be a plus here and plus after that. Yeah, that you can do. So there are three types of relationships in databases. One is one-to-one. For example, every user have an email address or email address and phone number. And every email address and phone number is linked to one user. One user have one email and one phone number. And you can just think of it like this. I know some of you might be saying every person can have multiple username, multiple email addresses, and multiple phone numbers. But for the timing, just assume that everyone has one. And one email address and phone number corresponds to one user. And then there is one-to-many, in which case one-to-many. In one-to-many, there can be a single user which can have multiple books that he is writing, a single author for multiple books. Okay. And then a single author can write multiple books. And then there is many-to-many. Many-to-many is basically a task list. You can think of a task list. A user on a task list. You can think of Jira if you like. You can think of Jira software. Every user can have a bunch of tasks that he defines. Okay, a user can define multiple tasks. And then each task can have multiple users who are defined to that task. So a user can have multiple task IDs. And a task can have multiple user IDs. Or if multiple people can write books, then a book can have multiple authors. So these are different kinds of relationships. For one-to-one relationships, the data used by reference and by embedding is same, because every user has only one. Every user has only one email and one phone number. So only one unit here and one unit here. But if it is one-to-many, then what will happen is, suppose every book wants to remember who is the author of that book, then the author field will be duplicated across multiple books. You see what I'm saying? The author field will be duplicated across multiple books because multiple books have same author. This is where embedded data sets will have a problem in saving data. They will have to save a lot of data. References will not need that problem. They will just save the author ID, and author details will be saved in the author table. Does that make sense, Vivek? Karan? Nilanjan, does that make sense? So this is what I was talking about before when I was talking about this idea that there's no repetition in references, but there can be repetitions in embedded data sets. Didn't get that. Could you repeat? Yeah, I can repeat that. Suppose I go back to this. Let me add a slide. Suppose I'm saving details about an author and books. I'm saving details about books. I'm not saving details about authors. I'm saving details about books. A single author can write multiple books. There are two ways. I can either save all the details about the book I can have ID, which is some ID, and then I have book name or title. Some title is there, and then author, which will be a bunch of details. First will be the name of the author, the age of the author, maybe the gender of the author. Okay. And then author detail, book detail, and there will be some description. I'll not write description. This is one way of doing it. Okay. The other way is to have book ID, book name, and author ID. Now, author ID will contain a number 1, 2, 3. And then this is my book collection. And then there can be an author collection. Author collection, where you will have ID as 1, 2, 3. This is the author ID, which is same as here. And then you will have the name of the author, the age of the author, and the gender of the author. You see the difference between these two types of data definitions. In this case, no matter how many books this author would have written, this copy will be single. There will be a single copy for this author in the author collection. And every time he writes a book, only the author ID gets updated into that books document. But here, every book that he has written, there will be an author, and the author field will contain all the details about the author. This will be copied across multiple books. This is what I mean when I say that there will be data duplication when there is one-to-many relationship. Does that make sense? Nilanjan? One-to-many and many-to-one is outside the schema detail, Avijit. You cannot specify. I think you can specify basically which property should meet, but I'm not sure how you can do that. You can say that the object ID is basically, so you can say that author ID is an object ID type, and say that it is a type with object ID. But more than that, I'm not sure how you can match the one-to-many relationships. Okay. Embedded thing you can obviously define, because you can say that author is an object which contains these properties, and you can have nested schema, but you cannot. I don't know how you can do the referencing thing. Okay. Okay, Vijay. Embedded is in many-to-many. References is just for analysis purposes, or not for to save space. Yes, that is true, Vishal. That it saves place. It saves space also. That is also there. Sometimes you also need to save space, so you use references. How to make my DB reference type then? There should be a type called as object ID. You can say type as object ID. You can just say that author ID is of type object ID. Okay, if you do this, you can say that your author ID will always be an object ID. Other than that, you cannot do anything about it. Okay. It will not be okay that object ID. So object ID is a type in MongoDB. There are a bunch of types in MongoDB. There is a string, there is number, there's date, there's timestamp. There's binary data, there's boolean, null, regular expression, JavaScript, min key, max key. Yeah. For unique values. Yes. I've discussed object ID last time. Have I discussed object ID last time? Yeah. But saving space is not the primary purpose of choosing a reference type. Yes, that is true, Vishal. That is not the primary purpose. That is true. So in embedded, each document is absolutely independent of other document and it takes a to save them. That is true, Ekta, but what is the benefit? Can you tell me what is the benefit of saving the whole document together? Ekta, can you tell me that? I would love to hear it from you. Why don't you want to save the whole document? Sharding is easier, that is true. But what is a general answer? What gets speed up? Which operation gets the speed up if you do this? Yeah, searching, finding and searching gets easier. You just have to get the single. If you do a find operation on a single user ID, you can get it very quickly. That is why you have this. It helps in hash horizontal scale. That is. Can you explain the lookup syntax once for joins? Lookup syntax once for joins. That I also have to look that up. Just give me 1 second. But if we have so much data together, won't searching? No, that won't be a problem, Ekta. It will be a constant multiplication, but it won't be like order of n. It will still be there will be a constant factor increase, but it will not be too much. Okay. Example of join in. I just searched and found that lookup used for joins. Yes, I am also looking it up. Let me refresh. I've never done lookups in join. Yes. Please. So you can do like this. Okay. So it has local field, foreign field that I'm not getting. I'll explain. Don't worry. I'll explain. Just give me 1 second. I'll share my whole screen again. I'll close this. I'll just come here. Let me define two tables first. Or maybe I can just define. Let me see what collections I have. Show. Show. No. Show collections. These are the collections I have. So what I say is, let me define. I've already defined some kind of things. Just give me 1 second. Let me do orders. Order.find. I'll just do db.order. db.order.find. There's nothing. Let me save an order. db.order.insert1. Let me save an order. Say, what is the order? Order will have an order ID, and I'll just have a product field. I'll let the product be a pen. Okay. Now, this is the object ID that I have. Let me copy this object ID. I'll need this. How do I copy it? I'm not able to copy this. I come here and my mouse is not working, so that's why I have to do all this drama. Now in this I can do db.user, db.users. I just do db.user.find first. A bunch of users. Now here I can do uh, so here I'm going to do db.user.insert1, and in this I'm going to insert a new user. Let me call him as Avijit. And then for Avijit, I'm going to save an order ID, and this order ID is actually equal to what order I have saved. Okay. Now I enter this, so this gets inserted. Now the next thing that I do is I can do db. This was a reference type. That is exactly true. Now you have a reference for that object order in the order type. Now what you can do is user dot join user dot join. What are you going to join? db dot order, comma order ID. Order ID should match the ID of the order. In the order table, the ID should match with the order ID in user table. And after this, once you have done this, you can just look at orders, and from orders you can do $push $product, and wait a second, ID should match the order ID. From orders you can push the product, and that should be just fine. I might also want to convert it into array, but that's I made some mistake in this order. Oh, there should be a comma here. Here a comma. Join is not a function. db.user dot join. Lookup. Join should be a function. It's not a function. Okay, let me use lookup. Oh, just give me 1 second. I might have to check the documentation for this. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm going to check the documentation. This, why is this? I'm looking for this documentation. Okay, there's an aggregate function. Sorry. I'm sorry, I was aggregate. Sorry, cancel. My computer has started working weirdly. Aggregate. Sorry. So this is how you can do it. No. Let me do it myself. I'm not happy with this. So you can do something like this. db.user db.user.aggregate, and inside this you can define a table, and in this table you can do lookup. Dollar lookup, and lookup is also from something. From lookup from, for a user, lookup from orders. Order. And what do you look up from order? User ID v $_ID. No. Okay. So I don't need this. Okay. I need the order ID. So order underscore ID should be equal to dollar underscore dollar order underscore ID. Was that the order ID that I pushed? Yeah. Save the order ID in a variable order ID. And what you can do is pipe. This is very complicated to write a pipeline for this. I don't want to discuss this. Sorry. Sorry, I don't want to discuss this. This is very complicated, and you can do it. You can just create a join between different tables, but it is not advisable. If you have to do this, then if you have to do this, this will take a long time. I don't want to talk about it. If it's, I can discuss it in an individual case, but in the class, I don't think it's useful. Sorry, Avijit. Basically, there's a pipeline concept that you have to look up. It's advanced concept. Yeah, that's true, Nilanjan. It's very advanced, and there are multiple tables that you need to join. But it's not just advanced. The only thing is, the other problem with this is, it is outside the scope of what we are discussing today. The details of aggregation, if this was in the syllabus, I would have discussed it. I don't know where aggregation is used in general. So yeah, if you have to use this kind of logic in MongoDB, then you are not using MongoDB properly. Typically, you should have a single logic which hits a single document and returns you the document directly. This is how you should use MongoDB. Anyways, I'll read more about aggregation, and maybe if it is useful, I'll discuss it. Uh, yeah, aggregation. I'll read more about aggregation, and if it is needed in the class, I'll discuss it more. Okay. Sorry, Avijita, I was not able to answer your question properly, but yeah, it was very complicated. I have to discuss multiple concepts before discussing how the join works. Anyways, that's it for today, students. I hope you have enjoyed the class. I hope to see you again in the next class, and I hope you are learning MongoDB properly this time. Okay. Yes. Okay. Bye, everyone. This join will be taken care of by Mongoose, I think. Yeah, Mongoose will do it. Mongoose will take it. Your classes in the morning. There's a class in the morning at 10 a.m. So see you in the class. And then again, good night. See you. Bye. When we'll start connecting on Go in VS Code, in the next class is on indexes. After that, we'll start with Mongoose. Tomorrow we'll talk about indexes in MongoDB, Nilanjan, and then we'll get started with Mongoose. Monday onwards we'll start, and then very soon we'll have the whole app ready. Maybe in next 2-3 weeks we'll have the whole app ready. Only the thing was MongoDB was a new topic, so it had bunch of chapters that needed to be covered. Other than that, everything has been covered, so you can quickly pick up the whole course. Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. We have learned so far, so we can run. Yeah, sure. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you for coming. Good night. Bye. Good night. Avijit has a doubt. Let me check. Yeah, Avijit has written the join statement. Very good, Avijit. From product field, this, local field, foreign field. Yeah, I know. And it's a little complicated, so I don't want to discuss it. Anyways, bye everyone. Yeah, local field is for the current table and foreign field is for the foreign table. I think, I'm not sure. Maybe local field is for the products table and foreign field is for the ID table. I don't know. Anyways, bye everyone.